Trump, the greatest president in American history, because Donald Trump, he is the most transparent president in the nation's history.
He's so transparent, you had to black out his name like 1,000 times.
But we're gonna move back to you.
I bet we are.
Yes, of course, because you're here to testify. That's what the whole point of this endeavor is. So of course we're moving back to you. It is all about you.
No connection. That is what the Attorney General of the United States stood behind a podium, looked into a camera, and told 330 million Americans. No connection. 2 words, delivered with the kind of certainty that only works if nobody in the room has access to Google. Jimmy Kimmel had access to Google. Which country are you watching this from right now? Drop it in the comments, because this clip traveled to places we genuinely did not expect, and we want to know exactly how far this story has reached. The press conference happened on a Tuesday. Bondi stood behind the Department of Justice seal, the weight of the federal government literally framed behind her, and delivered a statement that was clearly designed to close a door. The Epstein files had been released, the public was digging, the media was asking questions, and the Attorney General's job, at least on that day, appeared to be making the questions stop. She spoke for several minutes. She referenced the review process. She mentioned the volume of documents. She described the thoroughness of the investigation. And then she arrived at the line, the one that was engineered to be the headline, the soundbite, the clip that would circulate and settle the matter. There is no connection between President Trump and Jeffrey Epstein's criminal activities. She said it cleanly. She said it firmly. She did not blink. And for about 9 hours, it almost worked. Then Jimmy Kimmel walked onto his stage. He didn't open with a joke. He opened with the clip. He played Bondi's statement, the full statement, unedited in her own voice. From beginning to end, he let it finish. He let the audience absorb the certainty of her delivery, the Polish of her language, the institutional authority she was borrowing from the seal behind her. Then he set the remote down on his desk, and he said calmly, almost gently, "Okay, let's check." The audience laughed. But it wasn't a punchline laugh. It was the nervous laugh of people who already knew what was coming next. Kimmel reached under his desk and pulled out a printed photograph. He held it up to the camera slowly, the way a lawyer presents evidence to a jury. The photo showed Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein standing together, smiling at a social event. The image had been published by multiple major outlets years earlier. It was not new. It was not leaked. It was not secret. It was public. Completely, undeniably, searchably public. Kimmel looked at the photo, looked at the camera, and said, "Does this look like no connection?" The audience erupted, not because the photo was new, but because the denial was Bondi had looked into a camera and said, "No connection," while this photo had been sitting on the internet, accessible to anyone with a phone, for over half a decade. But Kimmel wasn't finished. He set the photo down and pulled out a second piece of evidence. Not a photo this time. A quote. Trump's own words. He read them slowly, making sure every syllable was heard.
I've known Jeff for 15 years. Terrific guy. He's a lot of fun to be with. It is even said that he likes beautiful women as much as I do, and many of them are on the younger side.
Kimmel paused after reading it. A long, deliberate, surgical pause. The kind of silence that makes a room understand that what they just heard is not a joke. It is a quote from the man whose Attorney General just told America there is no connection. The studio went cold. Kimmel looked into the camera and said, "Pam Bondi didn't review the files and find nothing. Pam Bondi reviewed the files and decided that you, the American public, wouldn't bother checking." The applause hit differently this time. Heavier, slower. The kind that sounds less like entertainment and more like recognition. If you are watching this right now, subscribe and hit that like button, because the patterns this channel covers are the ones that disappear if nobody slows them down. And what comes next is worth staying for. Now, what made this moment travel was not that Kimmel presented shocking new evidence. He didn't. Every piece of material he showed, the photo, the quote, had been public for years. Some of it for over a decade. That was the point. The exposure was not about what was hidden. It was about what was ignored. It was about an attorney general, the highest law enforcement official in the country, standing behind a podium and saying no connection, while the connection was sitting in a Google image search, 2 clicks away from anyone who bothered to look.
This Department of Justice is hiding the names of people who are not victims. Why are they doing that? That's the only question anybody needs to ask.
Many legal commentators noted in the days that followed that Bondi's statement was technically narrow. She said, "No connection to criminal activities," not "no connection at all." That distinction matters legally, but publicly, the distinction evaporated the moment Kimmel held up the photo. Because the average viewer does not parse legal footnotes. The average viewer hears no connection, sees a photograph of two men smiling together, and draws a conclusion that no amount of technical clarification can reverse. The aftermath followed the pattern this channel exists to document. Trump posted, he called Kimmel irrelevant. He called the show failing. He insisted the photo meant nothing. He insisted the quote was taken out of context. Though he never explained what context would make, many of them are on the younger side sound acceptable. Bondi's office released a clarification, restating that the review focused on criminal evidence, not social associations. But the clarification arrived 48 hours too late. The clip had already been viewed millions of times. The photo had already been screenshotted, shared, and stitched into response videos across every platform. And that is the architecture of a denial that collapses. It collapses because someone reminds the public of something old that was supposed to stay forgotten. Subscribe to the narrative brief and turn on notifications. The patterns are always there. We just make sure they don't get buried.